17 exceptions that do not follow the rule of English counting, right? So all you need to know is that how high do you have to count in order to have n items such that the number of exceptions is 17. That's how it goes, right? So you learn the counting sequence. Many of them follow a rule, some of them don't. You know those that do not follow the rule is actually 17. So what's the smallest number such that n divided by the natural log of n is 17? That number is 73. So this shows that as soon as you're able to count to 73, you should go all the way. And the reason that children figure this out is not because something we observe, it's because something we understand about how humans learn language. Okay, the mechanism of how humans learn language can be studied mathematically and statistically to the point of precision that we can predict how high children need to go to figure out the rules of language. And finally, I'm going to show you why this is true for Chinese as well. Oh, well, this is clear, right? So why children take many years for them to figure out how to count? Because you look at the ways of children learn, the daily interaction of learning, number of words are rare. And in fact, if you look at all the number of words in the English language, the three words 1, 2, 3 constitute about 95% of all the instances where children hear a number word. You really have to hear the number word for a very, very long time before you get to 73. Finally, again, that's what the Chinese, some of you may read Chinese, but Chinese is an extremely simple counting system. 1 to 10 is completely arbitrary, you have to memorize, but 11 is 10-1. 12 is 10-2. And 10, 10-3, 10-4, and so on. And 20 is you reverse the order, so it's just 2-10. Then 30 is 3-10. So you have 10, these 10 numbers cannot be derived, they have to be memorized. And maybe 11 has to be memorized as well because the positional marking is arbitrary, right? I mean, it could have been 110 for 11, but it turned out to be 10-1. So if you all together, you have 11 exceptions. So the question is, how high will the Chinese kid have to count to tolerate or to overcome the 11 exceptions? You can do this on a calculator. That number turned out to be 42. So again, we predict this is how the Chinese children would have to go in order to figure out how the counting system in their language works. And in fact, this is a lot of evidence I won't show you here, that when children figure out, can count on infinitely, that's when they figure out, that seems to be when they figure out the concept of infinity and the concept of natural numbers, which lays out a foundation for all of mathematics in the counting, including the kind of materials we study to get you here. Okay? Well, thank you very much.
We've given a prize at our assembly. Dr. Yang, while she's getting set up, we are going to have a drawing between each speaker. So if you don't mind doing the honors to give away a prize, we have some stat bags for prizes. Our first ones, they were made by Connor McGavin and Lana Duda. Awesome stat bags. Our first winner.
Yep.
Sophia Such.
Oh my God! So much.
Chi-squared and Sarah John. Our next presenter is Mrs. Hellman. Holly Hellman comes from us from the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. As a statistician, please join me in welcoming Ms. Hellman.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm going to do a combination of talking a little bit about my own personal experience and then giving you an example of some of one of the projects that I work on at CDC. So first of all, I thought I'd start with a few questions and answer those. So how did I decide to become a statistician? I actually decided that that's what I wanted to do with my career when I was actually a little bit younger than you guys. It was at the end of 10th grade, and I grew up in Georgia, and they had a program called the Governor's Honors Program, and you had to be nominated and selected, but I was selected to go in math. And when I was there, they covered areas of math that sort of went above and beyond what you got in your normal high school curriculum. And back then, they didn't have statistics classes in high school like they do now, so I had had no exposure to statistics. And I took an introductory class there, and I was hooked. I love math, and this seemed like the perfect way to use my math skills in a way that was applied to real-world problems. So going into 11th grade, I knew I wanted to be a statistician, and I proceeded, and that's what I am today. So what are the educational requirements that you need to become a statistician? Well, they offer undergraduate degrees in statistics now. They did not when I was going through school. You had to major in something else and then study statistics at the graduate level. And I think actually that's a good way to approach it because you can apply statistics to almost any area. And so sometimes it's best to get some expertise in the areas that you're interested in applying it towards first, and then go ahead and do study statistics at the graduate level. I did my undergraduate degree in math, and then I did a master's degree in statistics. And the math provided me with a foundation, a good solid foundation before I specialized in statistics. So the rest of my talk is going to be about some of the advantages of being a statistician and an example of my work as a statistician. So you may have seen this quote, maybe not, but John Tukey is a very famous statistician, and he says, the best thing about being a statistician is that you get to play in everybody's backyard. And that means that you can apply statistics to any area. And I've just listed here some of the various areas, and this is not an exhaustive list, of things that you can apply statistics to. You don't have to be an expert in all these different things. You learn as you go, especially if you tend to work in one area. Like our previous speaker, has learned a lot about linguistics in the process of doing the statistical analysis. One of the nice things about statistics is you work with multidisciplinary teams. So you don't have to be an expert in all these areas. You work with experts in those areas. And they teach you about these areas, and you teach them about statistics, and together you conduct the research. So it's very important that you have good communication skills and good listening skills. You've got to listen to the people that are the experts that can help you understand what it is you're going to be studying. And you need to be able to explain to them in clear terms some of the statistical techniques and the statistical approaches and interpreting the statistical results, even though they may not be experts in statistics. When I started out my career, my first job was with the Census Bureau, and I was working on forecasting economic data. The Census Bureau compiles all sorts of economic data about sales and inventories and imports and exports that go into telling how the economy's doing. And it was interesting, but it really wasn't my thing. So after doing it for a few years, I decided that I needed a change. And that's when I got a job at CDC, working more in public health. And that was my calling, and I've been there now for 30 years. So sometimes you may have to try out different things before you find the right fit. But I love my job, and I finally found the right fit. Another advantage of being a statistician is that there's a really high demand for statisticians and data scientists. Our world is becoming more quantitative with all the computers and the means of collecting data. There's a lot of data out there, and they need people that can analyze that data and make sense of it all. So the job opportunities in statistics are plentiful, and they're projected to even increase. In addition, data scientists, which is the study of large data sets, is rated as one of the top 3 jobs in IT and engineering, and they're anticipating about 15% growth in demand for these jobs in the next 5 years. I looked in the last edition of the American Statistical Association magazine, and at their meeting this summer, they've got over 200 job openings, and they'll have recruiters there looking for people to fill. So there are plenty of jobs out there if you're interested. Statisticians love to do surveys, and the American Statistical Association does a survey every other year of its members to find out what their salary is, so they can publish information on salaries for statisticians. So I pulled some of the numbers from the most recent survey, on the salary survey. So, and these are starting salaries. This is what you would make when you are first starting out, right, fresh out of school. And these are the median salaries, so half are going to be more and half are going to be less. But it does give you a ballpark idea of where they are. So there are three main sectors of employment. There's government, there's private industry or business, and then there's academics, universities. So for business and government, the average or the median starting salary with a master's degree is about $83,000, and for a PhD, it's $110,000. And that's just for starters. You know it's going to go up after that. If you're interested in being in academia, so if you want to do research and teach at a university, you have to have a PhD for that. The starting salary is $88,800 in a statistics department at the university, and biostatistics is slightly higher at $106,000. So you can have a meaningful career in business or in private industry with a master's degree or a PhD, but you do need a PhD to have an academic career. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the projects that I've been working on at CDC. It's called the Puerto Rico Zika Postpartum Emergency Response Survey. So how many of you have heard of the Zika virus? Most of you have. It was on the news quite a bit last year. Well, Zika is a virus that first came to the Americas, they think back in 2014. It originated in Africa, and in 2014, when Brazil hosted the World Cup soccer tournament, people from all over the world descended on Brazil, and they think that people infected with Zika from Africa came to Brazil, and that's how it first was initiated in this part of the world. The virus can be transmitted two ways. It can be transmitted by mosquito bites or by sexual transmission. If you're infected with Zika, in most people, you may not have any symptoms at all. You may not even know that you have it. In others, you get sort of mild flu-like symptoms that may last about a week, and then you're fine. However, in one population of pregnant women, the Zika virus can be, devastating. When a pregnant woman is infected with Zika, the virus makes a beeline straight for the developing brain cells in the fetus, and it causes brain abnormalities, and specifically a deformity called microcephaly. And microcephaly is a condition where the baby's brain isn't fully formed, and it has a much abbreviated forehead, as you can see in this picture. Children born with microcephaly, some die pretty early. Those that do survive have severe learning disabilities, and they often have a much shorter lifespan. They may survive to adulthood, but they don't usually live past 30 or 40 years old. So it's a really horrible disease to have. Now, there are only two types of mosquitoes that can transmit the Zika virus, and they are mosquitoes that thrive in tropical climates year-round. So the northern range for these mosquitoes is the southern United States, so we don't really have to worry about being bitten by mosquitoes here in Pennsylvania. But if you lived in South Florida or South Texas or in the Caribbean or Central and South America, in the tropical areas, that's where it's pretty widespread. So the first cases of Zika virus appeared in Puerto Rico in late 2015. And it spread rapidly through the island. And I just want to say that one of the ways they found out about Zika was because of this microcephaly. There were pediatricians who'd been practicing for their whole career and had never seen a case of microcephaly ever occur. And then all of a sudden in Brazil, cases started popping up all over the place. And that was a statistical anomaly that, you know, when they started investigating, why are these cases coming up, and they started testing the mothers, that's when they discovered that, you know, the Zika virus and the connection between Zika and microcephaly. So it was a statistical analysis that even identified this as being the culprit in the first place. So in Puerto Rico is really one of the only areas that's officially part of the United States, although it's a territory that has a tropical type of climate where these kinds of mosquitoes that carry Zika thrive. So when it came to the island, it spread rapidly, and CDC issued a bunch of recommendations for pregnant women for various precautions they could take to protect them from the Zika virus. Some of those included to prevent mosquito bites, wearing long sleeves and long pants whenever you went outside, applying mosquito repellent to any exposed skin, making sure that in your homes you keep your doors and windows closed, and if you do open them, to have screens on them to prevent the mosquitoes from coming in, to make sure you clear away any standing water around the outside of your house where mosquitoes can breed. And also they recommended that pregnant women have their houses and the areas around it professionally sprayed. And then for the sexual transmission portion, pregnant women should either abstain from sexual activity or use a condom every time they have sex during pregnancy to prevent it from Zika from being spread by an infected partner. So there were a lot of questions that we had about the population in Puerto Rico after these recommendations came out. Are the doctors giving the women these recommendations, and are they getting the advice that they need to protect themselves from Zika? Once they get the advice from their doctors, are they following it? Are they following the recommendations? And if not, why not? What can we do to encourage more women to take the proper precautions? And then we also wanted to find out if women were being tested for Zika, because there was a recommendation that every pregnant woman be tested to see whether she had the virus or not. And if they were tested, you know, what proportion actually do have Zika virus. So these were all questions that we had, but no one had the answer to. So we needed to design a survey, a representative sample of the pregnant women in Puerto Rico to ask these questions so that we could get some idea of the answers to these questions for that population. This is a map of the island of Puerto Rico, and it charts the number of births in Puerto Rico. This was from 2014. There were over 34,000 births, and Puerto Rico is divided into 8 geographic areas. And you can see